You probably picture 17th century London as a series of stiff, dusty oil paintings, static, silent, and distant. But the historical reality is far more visceral. By the 1600s, this was already a sprawling metropolis of nearly 500,000 souls, a chaotic, deafening labyrinth of timber and stone that smelled of coal smoke, spices, and river mud. It wasn't just a city, it was a survival engine, shaped by the relentless tide of the Thames and the friction of trade. But here is the problem with paintings. They freeze time. They strip away the movement, the danger, and the depth. Through modern AI, we can finally break that static frame. We can shift the camera, walk the cobblestones, and witness the scale of a world that vanished centuries ago. You're watching AI GoBack, resurrecting history pixel by pixel. If you value seeing the past brought to life with this level of detail, consider subscribing to support the Reconstruction. Our journey begins with the most iconic structure of the era, Old London Bridge. Before I started this research, I viewed it simply as a crossing point. I was wrong. By the 1600s, Old London Bridge was not merely a bridge, it was a living, breathing city suspended over the water. It functioned as a densely built street linking the City of London to Southwark, lined so thickly with houses, shops, chapels, and gatehouses that from the riverbank it looked less like a bridge and more like a continuous, floating neighborhood. But beneath this architectural marvel lay a deadly flaw. The bridge rested on 19 narrow stone arches, supported by massive, thick piers. These structures acted like a dam, constricting the tidal flow of the Thames and creating a ferocious difference in water levels. The result was a series of man-made rapids known as shooting the bridge. For the watermen and barges attempting to navigate these surges, the crossing was a gamble with death. Accidents were common, and the roar of the rushing water would have been the constant soundtrack to life in the shops above. The buildings themselves defied gravity, rising several stories high and projecting outward over the roadway until they nearly touched in the middle, blocking out the sky. Residents lived atop a tunnel of constant noise, carts, horses, livestock, and pedestrians fighting for space below. Fire was a perpetual terror in such a wooden labyrinth, and congestion was a daily reality. Yet for generations, people clung to this perilous existence. Crossing the bridge meant passing through a commercial artery, but also beneath the grim theater of the state. The southern gatehouse was frequently adorned with the severed heads of traitors, a stark reminder of the king's justice watching over the chaos.
Below, the Thames served as the true highway of the capital. In an era of poor roads, the river was the bloodstream of commerce. Barges, ferries, and merchant vessels crowded the water, carrying grain, coal from Newcastle, cloth for export, and luxuries from the New World. This was where the local collided with the global. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden mechanics of how these historical cities actually functioned, a like on this video helps us fund more deep dives into the archives. The bridge's restrictive arches had another strange side effect. In severe winters, the slowed current allowed the Thames to freeze over completely. During the Little Ice Age, the river transformed into a solid stage for frost fairs. The dark, dangerous water was replaced by ice thick enough to support tents, bonfires, and crowds. It was a surreal inversion of the natural order, a moment where the city walked on water. This specific view captures the northern entrance near St. Magnus the Martyr's Church. It is a scene of dense, accumulated history. However, by the mid-18th century, the structure was failing. It was too narrow, too old, and too dangerous. Between 1756 and 1762, the houses were stripped away, and the medieval wonder was slowly demolished. But for centuries, this was the only way across the river in central London. It was infrastructure, marketplace, and fortress all in one. Sometimes, looking at these reconstructions, I wish I could step back for just a single hour, to hear the wooden wheels on the stones and feel the vibration of the rapids. For now, this digital window is as close as we can get. Moving away from the suffocating density of the bridge, we find Buckingham House in the late 17th century. Long before it evolved into the vast palace we know today, it was a private townhouse standing in splendid isolation on the western edge of the city. Notice the open land and the manicured gardens. At this time, this area marked the sharp boundary between the urban sprawl and the countryside. It is a quiet reminder that even as London grew into a monster, its limits were still visible. You could walk out of the smoke and into the green fields within minutes. But that peace was fragile. In September 1666, the city's vulnerability was exposed in the most catastrophic way imaginable. The Great Fire of London began as a small bakery blaze, but was quickly weaponized by a strong easterly wind and a city built of dried timber and pitch. The AI reconstruction here captures the terrifying scale of the inferno.
The first image shows Ludgate in flames. In the distance, you can see Old St. Paul's Cathedral. At this moment, people believed the massive stone cathedral would save them. They packed their goods into its crypt for safety. They were wrong. The heat was so intense that the lead roof melted and ran down the streets like a river of silver lava. The second view, looking across from Tower Wharf, shows London as a continuous wall of fire. The roar would have been deafening, the sound of exploding stones and collapsing beams. In just a few days, the medieval city was erased. Yet this destruction was also a crucible. It cleared the rot of the medieval slums and forced the city to reimagine itself in stone and brick. If you are fascinated by how disasters like the Great Fire reshaped the modern world, make sure you're subscribed. We have more reconstructions on the way that explore these turning points in history. Rising above the river, untouched by the fire but drenched in blood, stands the Tower of London. In the 1600s, this wasn't a tourist attraction. It was the iron fist of royal power. It functioned simultaneously as a fortress, an arsenal, a treasury, and the most feared prison in the realm. While the city bustled with trade, the tower sat in ominous silence. Behind these walls, the crown jewels were guarded, and high-profile prisoners accused of treason waited for the axe. It was the physical embodiment of the state's authority, a cornerstone of control in a volatile century. We see that volatility clearly in this scene of Cheapside in 1638. This was London's premier high street, a stage for royal pageantry. Here we see the procession of Marie de Medici, the mother-in-law of King Charles I. The street is lined with spectators, soldiers, and temporary architecture designed to dazzle the public. At the center stands the Cheapside Cross, a beloved medieval landmark. But look closely at the context. This pageantry was a thin veneer over a city on the brink of collapse. The foreign Catholic queen was deeply unpopular in Protestant London. These crowds aren't just cheering, they are watching a monarchy that is slowly losing its grip. Within a few years, this street would not see processions but riots, as the city drifted inexorably towards civil war. This tension explodes when we look at Westminster in 1647. Viewed from across the Thames, we see the separate city of power, distinct from the city of trade. On the left is the old Palace of Westminster, the seat of Parliament. By the mid-17th century, this was the headquarters of the rebellion against the king. Beside it rises Westminster Hall, the ancient heart of English law, where King Charles I himself would eventually be put on trial and condemned to death, a shock that reverberated across Europe. Dominating the skyline to the right is Westminster Abbey, the spiritual anchor of the nation. For centuries, it had seen coronations and royal burials, reinforcing the sacred right of kings. But in 1647, it stood in a city turned upside down, where the divine right of the monarch was being dismantled by the soldiers of Parliament and the seat of power in Westminster. Politicians, spies, and messengers used these waters to shape the fate of the nation. Further along the river, we see the Palace of Whitehall in 1643. This was the primary home of the monarch, a sprawling complex of over 1,500 rooms that dwarfed any other palace in Europe. It was a city within a city, a maze of courts and chambers where the government was run. Tragically, almost all of this was lost to a fire in the late 17th century. Today, only the banqueting house remains, a lonely survivor of a lost age of magnificence. Finally, we travel upriver to Richmond Palace. Rebuilt by Henry VIII, this was the Tudor sanctuary, a place of cleaner air and open space away from the disease and intrigue of the capital. It was here that Elizabeth I breathed her last in 1603, ending the Tudor dynasty. Like Whitehall, it fell into ruin and was dismantled, its bricks repurposed, its memory buried beneath modern streets. Standing here, looking back at these reconstructed moments, the distance between us and them feels incredibly thin. These streets, these fires, and these political struggles shaped the very DNA of the modern world. Through the lens of AI, we get more than just an image. We get a glimpse of the lived experience. If there is another city, a specific decade, or a historic mystery you want to see reconstructed, let me know in the comments. I read every suggestion to decide where we travel next. Thank you for watching.